Hello again. So in this tutorial, I'm going to set up a simple demo scene where we can start rigging up a SpriteMan character from scratch. It won't look exactly like this one, but it'll be somewhat similar. So let me go ahead and get started. Unity usually comes with a sample scene that it starts out with, like the generic scene. First, we're going to create some ground for our character to walk on. It'll be a plane. We're going to go ahead and make this bigger. And for the material, we can use the material that I included in SpriteMan from the standard assets standard assets package. Now that we have a ground that our character can stand on, I'm also going to create a cube, a default cube, and this is mainly to get a reference for dimensions. And this mainly has to do with, now that I'm going to start creating a character, the physics in the game are usually, made to really correspond to built-in Unity dimensions. So this gives us like a very good starting point of like, one cube kind of ends up being 1 meter, or whatever the scale is. So like 1 by 1 by 1 is your standard cube. We have a ground. Let's go ahead and center these things to everything to 0. 0, 0. Focus on this. And bring it to stand on the actual ground. And I'm not doing any snapping here. I just need to get it kind of in the right place. Okay, now that I have that stuff, what I'm going to do is, here we have a camera. We can see that the little cube is visible within our camera, but we want to add kind of the same kind of controls that we have in the demo scenes, and that's all stuff that I've shipped in SpriteMan by default, so we can rig up a scene easily. Okay, so first we're going to create a new game object. Now I'm going to start rigging my actual character. And let's center him out just for kicks. We're going to bring him here out in front of the cube. We're going to maybe raise him a little bit. We're going to call this guy the player. It doesn't really matter what you call him, but this is basically going to be our player character. Underneath him, we're going to create a sprite object. So as a child of the player character, we need to create a sprite object. And really all this is a new game object that has a sprite renderer on it. So for example, if I did that completely from scratch, I select this game object, I right click, go to create empty. It creates a new game object. See, there's no sprite renderer here. I can go to add component, rendering, sprite renderer. It's the exact same thing that this shortcut gives you, sprite. Okay, so we're going to delete that guy. We're going to call this guy manage sprite. And this is just a naming convention that I kind of came up with. You can name it whatever you like. However, this makes it the most clear to me that we're going to add some SpriteMan stuff to this thing. But before we do that, let's go ahead and... Okay, so now that we have our sprite, let's figure out which character we're going to use. We're going to go with the knight character. I'm going to go find the knight's sprites, the sprite sheet, and I'm going to find the south direction sprite. I'm just going to drag this on here on the sprite renderer for now. So that way I get, just an image. There's no SpriteMan anything going on yet. It's just a simple sprite floating in space. And to get my dimensions correct, I'm going to go ahead and make this sprite a bit bigger. Maybe like 2 by 2 by 2. Yeah. Kind of make him stand on the ground, like thereabouts. Also, we got to make sure that this sprite is center is 0. The position is zeroed out to be relative to this guy, to his parent. So he's about 1/2 a meter tall, which is, I suppose, kind of like a midget. We should probably make him bigger. Maybe about 4. All right, let's go with 3. Okay, so this is probably like a good in-game dimension to go with. We're gonna hit save. Let's save our scene. Next, okay, so now that we have that, when we hit play, nothing happens. We see our characters down here at the very bottom. Let's go ahead and just add the controls to this character. So first, we're going to, that's inside the demos. So now on the parent, okay, this is where the sprite is. On the parent, we're going to add some components. First component is going to be I believe it's in here. Yeah, so we need to add a rigid body. Rigid body is the thing that lets us, that creates physics for our character. And he's going to use gravity, so it means he's going to fall towards the ground. We also need to create a collider. Generally, for your characters, you're going to use something like a capsule collider. So capsule collider, maybe we're going to reduce the radius to something like 0.35. And the height is okay. Okay, so now here is our character in our capsule collider. All right, and our character is kind of like floating up in space there a little bit inside the collider. So we need to actually bring the sprite down a bit to fit inside the collider. Now we're going to ground this guy. And I'm going to get into why it's doing that in a little bit. But for now, we just need to bring him down a little bit lower. And okay, and this is pretty good. We can 0.9. All right, so now that we've done that much, we also need to, okay, let's see what happens so far. We're gonna put him up here in the air. We're gonna hit play, and basically he drops to the ground. Okay, so that's that. And actually, even let's bring our camera down and point directly at the guy. Now we'll see, boom, he dropped to the ground. Okay. Now we need to control our character. So SpriteMan comes with a very basic controller, that you can just add for kind of testing purposes. And this controller is also going to need an animator, so like he's not going to work out of the box without also adding an animator. Animator is going to be under miscellaneous. The animator is the thing that's going to control all the various animations, like walking, jumping, attacking, and whatnot. All right, now we can hit play again. And we see that our character does things. So we have a moving character. And, he's kind of wobbly and tipping over right now. So we're going to fix that by going to the player's rigid body. And here there's a section called constraints. We're going to freeze his rotation so that he doesn't, fall over every time he bumps into something. Now that we've done that, okay, so we have a better control of the guy. And the last piece that we're going to do for this video is we're also going to add on the main camera, we're going to start making the main camera follow our player. Okay, and we're going to find that script underneath, I believe it was standard assets. There's a script in here under utility. It's called smooth follow. So select your camera, find the script under the utility, under standard assets, drag it to there. Now we're going to drag our player. So we click on this, don't let go of the thing. And you drag this guy over here. So now we've given our camera smooth follow script a target to follow. And now we can start kind of playing around with some settings. When we hit play, now we see that, okay, it works, but it's pretty far away. Let's unmaximize the game. And with our camera selected, we're going to figure out some nicer height dampening is going to be like a 5. Rotation damping, we're not going to worry about rotation damping. Distance is going to be like a 4. Let's do 4. And height 2.5. So thereabouts. We're going to go ahead and copy this component because once we stop playing the game, it resets everything to 0. I mean, it resets everything to its defaults before we entered play mode. And now we can paste the component values. And we have the values that we set in game mode. All right, so we got this. Our character moves around. Okay, he can't currently jump yet because, let's see, his jump velocity is set to 0. His ground to distance offset. This is a field that's going to affect the jump animation later, but for now, change from the default to 0.1. Jump velocity, maybe like 5. There's no attack collider yet, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. Okay, so see now our character can jump. And he can jump on the block. And you're gonna notice that as this character is doing things, basically, so here I'm trying to jump, but he's getting stuck on they basically get stuck on stuff, so he can't really jump when he's colliding with things. There are various ways to fix that issue, but the easiest that I found is to simply go into the project settings, find the physics, just increase the gravity to something like a 50, negative 50. And then we're going to give this guy, okay, his mass is fine. He has 0 drag. 0 means no dampening. Infinity, okay. And then we're going to have to give him a stronger jump velocity, so something like a 30, maybe. Maybe walking speed can be 1.5, running speed can be 2.25. Play. Oh boy. Okay, so that's like way too high. Let's see what happens if we don't use camera movement. Okay, now he's jumping into the stratosphere. Give him like a 10 for jump velocity. Okay, so now his jump is like very snappy. All right, so I finally found some settings that work. The settings are when you go to project settings under physics, I set this thing to a very high gravity, like 100, negative 150. And then I set the jump velocity to like a 25. So I'm sure there's probably lots of better ways to do this, especially when you're trying to create more realistic games. But for now, our character isn't getting stuck in the wall when he's kind of trying to jump around and knocking into things. He's able to jump on top of the block. You see the jump is pretty snappy. All right. Okay, now that we have our kind of scene rigged and we can now hit play and play around with our character, and we can do some actual SpriteMan stuff in the next video.